All right, Louis Meyer.
Louis Meyer is one of the most important people, I would say, in the history of the Indianapolis 500. Maybe pretty much of a forgotten name now, but he's a legendary character. He was the first person to win the 500 three times. In fact, he was the first person to win twice without a relief driver, because Tommy Milton, the first two-time winner, took a relief driver in his second win. But Louis won it in 1928 and then come back and won it in 1933. And then in 1936, he won for a third time. And there's several things that happened in 1936. In addition to him being the three-time winner, he introduced unknowingly the tradition of milk, because he asked for a bottle of buttermilk, which is what he would drink regularly to refresh himself on a hot day. And that ended up starting the tradition of drinking the milk. Also, he's the first person to received the Borg-Warner Trophy as a new trophy, because it was unveiled in 1936. And then he also is the first person that was presented with the keys to the pace car, which was a Packard. Tommy Milton, who was the first two-time winner, was an engineer with Packard, drove the pace car and said, why don't we give it to the winner? So they did. Anyway, after Louis retired, and he was second in 1929 as well, so he really had an amazing record at the track. After he retired, and then after the war, he and Dale Drake, a friend of his, former riding mechanic, they purchased the Offenhauser engine business from Fred Offenhauser. So it became Meyer and Drake Engineering, but effectively it was still called the Offie. And so they produced all of the winners all the way through the late 40s and through the 50s and into the early 60s. And then Ford Motor Company, when it came into racing, he then sold his interest to Dale Drake and then became the distributor for the Ford racing engine until he gave that up, I think, in 1969.
How long? When did he die?
He was 93 years old, I think, when he died, and I can't put a date on it at the moment. But he would play golf and go water skiing right up until, when he was like into his 90s. His last start was 1939, and he wasn't too far from becoming the first four-time winner. He led for quite a chunk, spun, I think, on lap 182, came around, had a tire change, got back out, and he was chasing Wilbur Shaw, and then he crashed again, coming off the second turn with 3 laps to go. And he he got thrown out of the car, landed on the track, and as he was walking towards the infield, he thought to himself, I think I've just retired as a race driver, as indeed he did. And there's a little trivia about the fact that when he got to the infield hospital and his wife came in, and she said, what happened to your shoes? Because he was sitting there with his in socks. And he said, well, I don't know. And he looked down, and it turned out that the shoes were still in the cockpit of the car. When he got thrown out, the shoes got left behind.